So we've been celebrating our Advent by looking at the women that have listed in the genealogy of Jesus. And our theme is Broken Christmas, gospel light through shattered lives. And these women show us a picture of brokenness that's different to each one. And so this morning we're talking about Ruth, which comes from the book of Ruth. And she loved her mother-in-law, and she had great compassion for her because her mother-in-law not only lost her husband, but her two sons. And that's a weight. And she saw that. And even though her sister-in-law decided to stay home in Moab and go back to her home country, Ruth said, no, I love my mother-in-law. I love Naomi. I'm staying with her. And also, I love the God of Israel. Because that's the crazy part. We read the Old Testament and we think that God only has a heart for his nation Israel, but Ruth, she's not a part of that nation. She, if anything, was married into it. So we see that God has a heart for all people. So she stays with Naomi, and she stays with the God of Israel that she had come to know. And so together, Ruth and Naomi, they make the journey back to Judah, to the city of Bethlehem. Maybe you've heard of it, right? And they decided to settle there. And it's Ruth's testimony. As it spreads, there's a certain young man named Boaz. And his mom was Rahab, who we talked about last week, right? And he marries Ruth, who was once a pagan Moabite girl. Now their kid, is someone named Obed, right? We know that old guy from way back. That's King David's grandpa. And so when we think of like God's heart for all people, again, we have to fight the thought that it's only focused on Israel. And think of one of the most key characters in the history of Israel is David. I mean, just look at the flag for Israel today. It's the Star of David, whose great-grandma was not Hebrew. And so this Christmas, we look at Ruth's life of brokenness in the form of loss and grief. And there's a lot of us this year that have lost a loved one, a mom, a dad. We've had some lose spouses, even kid. And it's a heavy weight, because this is the first Christmas you have to go through without them. And not only are you grieving the loss of that person, you're grieving the loss of the life that you thought you were going to have, because you thought you had so many more years, so many more Christmases, so many more memories that you were going to build. And now this is our reality. And so Ruth reminds us that God is still greater than our grief and our loss. And when we have no idea what our future holds, or even if we're already thinking maybe that our future is over, because I've already lost everybody, what does God have for me? It reminds us that we can still be used by God for a new future, that our story is not done. And so these women show us God's powerful grace, and they give us hope that we can be a part of what God is doing in the world today, even in our grief and loss. So if this Christmas is marked with that kind of grief, allow that brokenness, allow the gospel light to shine through the brokenness that you'll have this Christmas. And knowing that we will celebrate the birth of Jesus, and at the same time grieve the loss of the family that we have that we wish were right next to us. See, the story of Ruth reminds us that even in grief, even in loss, God is still doing a new thing, and he is with us. The same God with Ruth and Naomi is the same God that is with us in that little manger, and it's the same God that was with us, that went to a cross for us. And for that reason, we worship.